7. So this surah, Surah al-Sharh, Surah 94, was revealed, it is believed, almost immediately after the preceding one. The preceding one, Surah 93, Surah al-Duha, which we had read and studied last Ramadan, alhamdulillah. It just seems like yesterday. Time passes so fast. And it sounds like a continuation, actually, of the previous surah. Well, surahs are always related to each other, but this one is not only the topic, but also even the language is very similar. It seems like it's a continuation, like as if it's the same surah. So much so that some scholars, we are told, they regarded the Surah al-Duha, 93, and this surah, Surah al-Sharh, 94, as one. And so during the prayer, when they used to recite them, sometimes they wouldn't stop and say the Basmala, the Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, with which we start every surah of the Quran, in the name of God. They would just recite them one after the other. So you may want to go back. You will find the recording of Surah al-Duha on YouTube, Ramadan 2010-15, inshallah. You will see that they are related. But here we won't have time to relate to the other surah. In any case, this surah and the other surahs we've seen last year, like the rest of the Quran, like we keep repeating, are addressed first to the Prophet ﷺ, peace and blessings be upon him, and through him to every follower of the guidance of the Quran, to all of us, inshallah, to all of us who want to benefit from the guidance of the Quran and make it and live accordingly, inshallah. So this surah, it's a short surah with 8 ayat and 8 short verses, ayat. استعيذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ألم نشرح لك صدرك ووضعنا عنك وزرك الذي أنقض ظهرك ورفعنا لك ذكرك فإن مع العسر يسرا إن مع العسر يسرا فإذا فرغت فانصب وإلى ربك فارغب.
I think that's for me, this surah.
Sorry?
I think that surah is for me today.
Inshallah, for all of us.
For me.
So it starts with the title of the surah comes from the first ayah, the word nashrah. We expand. And so literally, Inshirah is the expansion of the heart, of the chest, and it also relates to peace and ease of mind, peace of heart. The first ayah, أَلَمْ نَشْرَحْ لَكَ صَدْرَكَ, have we not expanded for you your chest? Which means we did expand for you your chest. And this is a reminder. This is reminding us, the Prophet ﷺ firstly, and all of us, that we have been, our chests have been expanded for us. Sharaha, nashrah.
Sorry, so to me, this have we not opened up your heart? It is a reminder, but it's also a claim to me. It's a claim because if you really can't confirm that, then you don't need to continue reading. So there is a kind of stop here that says, really? I mean, can you confirm? Do you know? Remember?
That's why it's a question mark. Yeah, thank you for. I was not going to go into the linguistics, but the fact that it's a question, it's an invitation to make you pause and interrupt you and say, truly, really? When was that? How? Is it true? So it's a question, it's a reminder, and also it's an invitation to go and confirm that truly it is so.
Yeah, and the way of asking the question is, how is it so? How is it an opening up of my heart?
So the fact that it's not saying we have expanded your chest for you. It will be like truly a claim, and like you say, there is no invitation to carry on and find out how. But because it's a question, there is that open invitation. The door is open and saying, would you like to come in and see? And it's worth, because, if your heart is being expanded, it sounds good, right? Especially the verb here, the verb nashrah, alam nashrah, have we not expanded? Sharaha comes from sharaha. It means open up, open forth. But it's different from, for instance, fataha, which means fataha, fath, that's fatih, that's opening. Here it's a little bit, it's opening up something which is complex, something that needs clarification. And it also means clarifying something. Sharh, when you talk about the sharh of a book, you don't understand that it's being opened. You understand that there is a clarification. Someone wrote something to clarify what's in the book or in a text, sharh of a text. And here, like, think about it, what is more obscure than our own hearts, our own emotions, our own hidden belief, all what is in our chest, metaphorically speaking. It's very obscure. And the clearer we are about what's going on, the more likely our chest will be open to be expanded. We will see that, inshallah. So there is something not just opening and expanding. There is something else going on with the verb sharaha, with the inshirah. And when the expression sharaha Allahu lahu sadrahu, which is here, nashrah laka sadraka, when the heart, the chest is being expanded, it means the heart, the mind is being put at ease, at peace. It's a like an idiomatic expression. So there is an understanding of ease and peace that's also understood in this expression. So the one whose chest has been expanded is pleased. And you can think about it when we are happy, when we are unhappy, when something bad is going on. How do we feel? We feel our chest is tightened and we feel that it's constricted. But when we feel good, we feel that it's expanding. Instead of tightening, it's expanding. So the one whose chest is expanded is pleased and content, in contrast to his state before his chest has been expanded, which is a state of unease and a state of discomfort. And we will see how this is related to surrender. When a person is totally content with what God has given to them, when we are satisfied with what God has given to us, which that acceptance is called surrender, surrendering to the will of God, trusting that his will is the best for us. That's when we are at ease and our chest, our heart is made to expand. So what does expansion of the chest refer to? Usually, as we mentioned many times before, the Quran clarifies itself. So the expression of sharh al-sadr, expansion of the chest, appears in other places in the Quran. For instance, in Surah Al-An'am, which is Surah 6, 125, we are told, فَمَنْ يُرِدُ اللَّهُ أَنْ يَهْدِيَهُ يَشْرَحْ صَدْرَهُ لِلْإِسْلَامِ. Whomsoever God wills to guide, he expands his chest with surrender, with willingness towards surrender unto the will of God. So when God guides us, how do we know he guides us? Because we feel that expansion in our heart. And who feels the expansion in his heart? The one who is willing to surrender to the will of God. And only when we surrender to the will of God, we are able to benefit from his guidance. So there is no discrimination. I only guide these people and not these people. The guidance is there for everyone of us, but we benefit from it to the extent that we surrender. It's so like when we are not surrendering, when we are in a state of resisting what is going on, when we resist whatever is created around us, within us and around us, which is the will of God, when we are unaware that it is the will of God, or we don't have the intention to surrender, what we're doing, we are like a blind of the heart. Our insight is blinded. We cannot benefit from the guidance, the divine guidance. And the only guidance, the only true guidance, the only beneficial guidance is divine guidance. So whomsoever God wills to guide, he expands his chest with willingness towards surrender, self-surrender unto the will of God. And whomsoever he will, as opposed to those who he causes his chest to be tight and constricted. So in this ayah, there is a contrast, and we understand that the chest is expanded for us when we are willing to surrender. And when we are not willing to surrender, when we reject, when we then, or we resist, we refuse to surrender, then our hearts get tight and constricted. In another ayah in Surah Zumar, which is Surah 39, ayah 22, we told, أفمن شرح الله صدره للإسلام فهو على نور من ربه فويل للقاسية قلوبهم من ذكر الله أولئك في ضلال مبين. Very beautiful ayah, mashallah.
Do you have the numbers again, or would you like to type them so that I can find them verses?
Is the second one or the first one?
Both.
The first one was Al-An'am, Surah 6, ayah 125.
Mm-hmm.
And the one I just read is 39, Zumar 39, ayah 22.
Thank you.
And so this second ayah says, could then the one whose chest God has expanded his chest with what? With his willingness to surrender unto God. So that as a result of this, he is illuminated by a light that flows from his Rabb, from his sustainer. Can this one be likened to the blind and deaf of heart? Woe then unto those whose hearts are hardened against the remembrance of God. They are most obviously lost in error. That means that the ones whose breast, whose chest God has expanded to surrender to Islam, and as a result of this person is upon a light from his Rabb. He is not like the one who chooses to reject or to resist or to refuse to surrender. And then woe to those whose hearts are hardened. Why are they hardened? Because they do not remember God. The more we don't remember God, the more life becomes harder, and the heart becomes harder because we have to protect ourselves emotionally, physically, all kinds of, the whole world seems to be against us. We have to stand for ourselves. We do not have any support from anyone else. So we have to rely on ourselves, it seems to us, like in Surah Al-Layl, which was before Surah Al-Duha, Surah 92, where this guy, he imagines himself to be self-sufficient. When that self-sufficiency comes at, that imagined self-sufficiency comes at a price, the price of, I have to stand for myself and fight the whole world and struggle with everything, even against my own desires, to stay safe. And so the heart becomes harder and harder and harder, because that's the only way I can numb myself from the pain and the suffering of living in that state of being, that state of mind, that state of unawareness from our Rabb, from our host. And it says that those are in clear error. So accordingly, God provides a light for the believer, it says in this ayah. But who is this believer? The one who chooses to surrender to the will of God. The one who chooses to surrender to the will of God, his heart is made to expand, and as a result, it is made to benefit from the light of divine guidance. So this person, the believer, the surrenderer believer, walks with a clear guidance from his Rabb to lead his way. So life becomes much easier. And this is pleasing to the human heart. Pleasing because there is light and I know the meaning of everything and I know where I'm going and I know the purpose of life, but also pleasing because there is this powerful, all-merciful, all-generous, all-knowing host, my Rabb, who is taking care of me here and forever in Akhirah as well. So that's really, really very important. It brings this feeling of relief and really of pleasantness and comfort and peace, and the human heart, the chest, really, you feel physically, it expands. As opposed to this one, the one who does not choose to remember God or to surrender to his will, his heart contracts, tightens, and hardens. And this is also felt in the body, just like the expansion. And so he cannot receive the guidance when we are in that state of contraction. If it does never ends and it gets just more tighter and tighter and harder, then the heart becomes blind and deaf. And we cannot benefit from the light of divine guidance. And so that person remains in darkness, and as a result of his own choice, he goes astray. He cannot find his way. He cannot find his way to Akhirah, to paradise, to everlasting life. And there is nothing to guide him along the path of life. In these two ayat, it's clear that God makes the chest of the believers expand. He gives them comfort and ease and peace with Islam, with surrendering. So there is a condition to this, which is, from our part, we intend to surrender to the divine will. And this divine will is the divine will in creation and in the Quran. Or we can say divine will in the Quran, but the divine will in the Quran tells us that the will of the creation, there is an order of creation, and that order is also the divinely ordained. Therefore, it is part of the divine will. For instance, I don't want to share anything with the poor neighbors, although I have extra a lot. I may waste it or I may store it, depending on different people have different attitudes. But I believe in God as the giver, the helper. my way of being, my way of acting belies what I claim. They have to be together. If I truly believe that God is the giver, He's the helper, then I must be convinced that what I have is not mine, it is given to me. Therefore, when I am told, give it and share it with the others, it will be very easy. And we, as we are told in the Quran, you do not share with the poor because you don't believe truly in Akhirah. Because I think I am here forever. I need it for, you never know, 10 years later, maybe I will need it. And also, I am not present to the fact that I'm given here and now. And if I'm given extra, it may well be that I'm given that in order to give to the poor who can't, or to the sick, or who can't go and work for it. I take it for granted that no, I worked for it, it's mine, or it was given to me, it's mine. And so the will of God in creation in the Quran, they are always parallel, they complement each other, they are one and the same, they look to each other, they confirm and clarify each other. We cannot separate them. And in Surah Taha, which is Surah 20, when Moses alayhi salam, is asked to go and speak to Pharaoh, he asks God to expand his breast, and he uses the same expression, an expression that we use all the time as a prayer, because his prayer became our prayer. God teaches us how to pray by telling us how the prophets of God, the messengers, prayed. So Musa alayhi salam prays to God and asks him to expand his breast, his chest, and to make his task easy. And he says, قال, he said, رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري. And it carries on, واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. And it is a dua that we make all the time. So in Surah 20, Taha, Ayah 25 and 26, Musa alayhi salam says, O my Rabb, O my sustainer, expand my chest and make my task easy for me. So why does Musa alayhi salam needs his chest to expand? Because in this situation, in Surah Taha, we know that Musa alayhi salam is in a tough situation. He is asked to go and speak to Pharaoh. Pharaoh is this, he's Pharaoh. He claims to be the God, the Rabb, the sustainer of the people. He has no intention to surrender to anyone. And so Musa alayhi salam needs support and guidance. It's not easy to just go. You have nothing. He had nothing. He had no army, no power, nothing. And he's asked to go to speak to this cruel dictator who has lots of power. I mean, at least apparently, when you look inwardly, how do you say, in worldly conditions, that's how it looks. So he needs to let go of the fear and anxiety of the situation. I mean, as a human being, Musa alayhi salam, however much he is a messenger, but you have nothing, you are alone. Not only you are alone, he was wanted on top of that. And he's asked to go to this cruel and very powerful ruler. So you can imagine, I mean, I can't even imagine, because for me, just out of question, the fear and the anxiety, I would be totally paralyzed. I wouldn't even entertain the possibility. So there is fear, anxiety of the situation. And so what he does, he surrenders with trust in his Rabb, and he prays. And this prayer of his is an indication, is the sign that his intention is to surrender. He doesn't say, no, excuse me, but like probably I heard wrong. Probably would say, I didn't hear it right, because it can't be true. It can't be me against this.
Or you've got the wrong person. Maybe.
Yeah. But definitely there is something wrong. He doesn't say that. Subhanallah, look at the surrender, look at the taslimiyah, look at the trust in his Rabb. And so he doesn't question the logic of what's going on. He doesn't question his Rabb or his Rabb's command to go and do this and that. No, he goes back to himself. He has full trust in his Rabb, and he goes back to himself, and he finds himself, his chest is tightened with whatever, of course, fear, anxiety, all the things that you can imagine. You don't even have to give them a name. You feel that it's going to be very tight. So he asks, please, shrah li sadri, expand my chest and make my task easy. So he is willing and ready to abide by the divine command, by the divine will. His intention is to surrender, and he asks for help. And as a result, Allah put him at ease by expanding his chest, which means as he remembers his Rabb's generosity and compassion and power, and he relies on his Rabb, then Pharaoh is not scary anymore. That's what it means, that his chest is made to expand. In the remembering itself, the more we remember who our Rabb is and our intention is to surrender, the more we relax. We feel at ease, because whatever is going on, he knows he is the one who has power over all things. And he has the last word over everything. So Pharaoh is not this scary monster anymore. So what happens to our chest what happens to us? This was Musa alayhi salam. When we are humiliated, when we are saddened, when we feel uncomfortable for any reason, what happens to us? Our chest, in our body, we feel it. We don't have to say, is it fear or anxiety? Or is it sadness? It doesn't matter. It's something that makes our chest tighten up.
So this chest, I mean, he asks to expand his chest because he has a difficult task. So it's not just about that might be kind of biased. No? It's not just about a broken heart. I mean, it's about everything. That's what you're saying, right?
Yes, everything. The key here is not the broken heart or fear or heart full with sadness or fear or anxiety.
Because I mean, I was thinking that this is, I mean, when you said this tight chest, so that people have fear. I mean, that's what usually is the result of a broken heart. I mean, often. I mean, not usually, but potentially. That's what makes people bitter in life, when they kind of think they gave their heart and then it's gone. So, and now you're saying that that's one of the occasions, but there's also all the others occasion, right?
But that occasion too, it's again, our heart gets hardened because we think we have to take care of it because the others did something to us. Whereas here, to surrender to the will of God means that we remember that whatever happened by the will of God. Remember the example of Yusuf alayhi salam, because that surah was like a beautiful, beautiful story, and it's the story of every human being. It's the story of all of us. So there, what happens is this child, Yusuf alayhi salam, is attacked by not one brother, but many, many brothers, like I don't know, 11 or something of them. And they are older, and all of them are jealous to the point of wanting to harm him seriously. Yet, we see all along the surah, he is not busy with how shall I protect myself from my brothers? How shall I take revenge? How shall I do this and that? That's how the heart hardens and becomes bitter. He is all the time busy with one thing, how to surrender to his Rabb. Because he knows that, yes, the brothers used their free will in a wrong way. They made the wrong choice and they're responsible for it. But that looks to them. You can pray for them. But as far as he's concerned, whatever happened to him was meant to be for a higher good. It was meant to be there was wisdom, there was meaning, there was purpose in whatever happened to him. So as we always say, which I learned from Imam Badi'u Zaman Sa'd Nursi, rahimahullah, and may Allah reward him for his beautiful tafsir. So he says, in every event, and especially among human beings, there are three aspects to that event, to that happening. One looks to the other person's will, they are responsible. And as far as I'm concerned, there are two aspects. One looks to me, one looks to the divine will. When I remember the divine will, when I remember that this is meant to be, and it's not happening haphazardly, it's happening with wisdom and with meaning and with compassion, and it is an ayah bringing me a message from my Rabb. So it's something that's going to help me grow. It's not on the way, it's in my way. It's part of my life. Then when I remember that, I make istighfar and say alhamdulillah. And then as far as my free will and choice is concerned, I choose to surrender. And in part of the surrender is maybe I have to interact with the brothers as he had to towards the end of the surah. And when he interacted, he didn't even interact with hate. Why? Because he lived in surrender. So in fact, not only he was not angry and full of hatred towards them, but he was so full of compassion that he was looking for ways to make them realize their mistake, make them ask for forgiveness. He was helping them rather than being angry with them. How could he do that? Because he's aware that when they did that, they ظلموا أنفسهم, they wronged themselves. They could not wrong Yusuf, because whatever happened, Yusuf alayhi salam was aware that it is from God. And as when we live with that awareness, with that ihsan, then everything becomes beautiful. We start seeing the divine will, we start seeing the divine names, which are all beautiful in everything, even the ugly things.
And there I have another question. So surrender and trust is basically the same, right? I mean, there are different words, isn't it? I mean, what's the Arabic words for surrender?
Trust is tawakkul. Yes, tawakkul.
So what is the difference? So there's surrender and there's trust. And it sounds like that's exactly what you're supposed to do here, that you're saying that
when you trust, you can surrender. When I trust, I can surrender. And I trust when I know. The more I know God, the more I know him with his beautiful names, with his beautiful attributes, the more I trust him. The more I know him, I recognize, I'm aware that he's the one who gives me life. He's the one who is giving me, sustaining my breathing right now. He's the one who is giving me intelligence if I think that I'm clever and I'm solving things. He's the one who is giving me my sustenance, helping me and everything, guiding me. Then the more I know him as my Rabb, which is only possible, I always say again, let's remember, to the extent that I am aware of myself as a abd, as someone who has needs, and my needs are being taken care of. Because when I'm not aware of this, I imagine, I fancy that I'm taking care of myself. And if I'm taking care of myself, I can't see who is taking care of me. And so even if I think I believe in God, that God is not my Rabb. And if he's not my Rabb, if I can't make the connection, I'm disconnected from the Rububiyyah. And so I'm disconnected from my own Ubudiyyah. And so I don't get to experience and taste that beautiful taste of the divine names. I'm needy and I'm being helped. I'm in need of my life being sustained, and it is being given to me. So I taste that, the divine names, and I appreciate them. And to the extent that I appreciate them, instead of saying, why am I needy, and rebelling against my reality, when I accept my reality and trust, when I know my Rabb and trust him, it's easy to surrender to his will. But it's like Musa alayhi salam. Can you imagine? You're alone, you have no army, no power, nothing, and you are told, go and speak to Pharaoh, and you are a wanted person in that system. You wouldn't want to go. No way. I would make, like, I don't know how many justifications. It's very easy to justify things when we have no intention to surrender. But Musa alayhi salam knows his Rabb and he trusts him, therefore he's willing to surrender. So they are connected. They are not the same thing, but they are very closely connected. Knowing God, trusting him, ma'rifatullah, knowledge of God. The more you know him, the more you love him. Muhabbatullah, tawakkul, trust, taslim, Islam, surrender. Does it make sense?
I think that surrender you can do, or you sometimes have to do even without knowing.
Yes,
but
this is the
something
point.
that
I know.
something that you
I
build on knowledge.
Exactly. Like Musa alayhi salam, did he know what was going to happen with Pharaoh? No. But based on his knowledge of who his Rabb is, not of knowledge of the situation. So there are, can you see that there is a distinction? I don't have to know everything to surrender, but I know who my Rabb is. I know him as the generous. I know that he knows everything. I know that he is compassionate. I know that he creates everything on purpose. He's Hakim. So I trust him and surrender. But I don't know what's going on in this situation. It seems totally illogical and totally unreasonable to us sometimes. Yet I say to myself, it seems unreasonable to me because I don't know. But if this is what's required of me, then I will do it. I can't say yes, but look, people will laugh at me. It's like, I'll give you a very simple example. The first time when I heard, I never knew that there were people wearing the hijab around me. I never knew that it was in the Quran. So the first time a friend of mine learned and did it, I was like, what are you doing? How are you going to do now? What will happen in the summer? What will happen from this and that? All kinds of reasons came to my mind for a week or so. And then I said to myself, yeah, but like, who are you to know? What are you doing in this life? Like, I didn't know much about the Quran, this is the very beginning. Actually, alhamdulillah, that's what put me in the path of the Quran. So at the end of the day, I said, you are making all this reasoning, but it doesn't mean that you can't live without that. People are living, and I looked around me, there were not many, but like, people can live with it. And if it's in the Quran, who knows? That you don't know even if you will be alive tomorrow. Like, how can you claim all this thing? So decide to surrender. That's it. And alhamdulillah, the more I think about it, yes, there were times where it was a little bit hard, but in the beginning, the more I started living more consciously, the more now I look at it, it was like maybe one of the main breakthroughs that put me on the path of the Quran, alhamdulillah. So I'm so grateful for it now.
There's a
but
question.
I could not know it before, and it's not something that I can explain or someone can explain rationally, because it's something you live and you taste. It's like honey. You never seen honey. I can show you a picture, even a video, but I can never explain to you the taste. You have to taste it yourself.
And I mean, so there is this Rumi poem that you once sent recently that is said, that even if I don't want, I don't remember the context anymore. Something like, even if I don't want to submit to life, I will be made submitting to life anyway. So there is that. So you can't really. No.
Submit. It means submit willingly. Because
right.
when we submit willingly, we get the benefits. If we are made to submit, no one wants to die, but everyone will die. No one wants to grow older, but we are all growing older.
Right, and we are made growing through life, but that trusting is more the trusting on how you build a relationship. When you get to know someone, and you check what kind of relationship.
Actually, we don't grow, Andrea. We mature and grow only when it is with surrender and with awareness. Otherwise, we grow older in age, but not more mature and not wiser. That's not necessarily.
There's a question from someone who posted it. Shall I read it, or do you want to?
Yeah, I wanted to ask Sister Yamina. There's a question on the floor. Sister Anne asked the question. So what I can do is I can go ahead and read it, but I don't know if you want to take it now or if you want to take it later.
We'll see, inshallah.
It's in the chat. Maybe you can see too. She's asking, what if surrender feels like you are becoming a doormat for those around you? Surely it's part of the divine will, but it does not feel good. I think the tawakkul you mentioned helps.
I think this surrender, there must be a misunderstanding of surrender if it feels like being a doormat, because surrender, to the contrary, it brings dignity, because you are using your will consciously. I'm consciously surrendering to the divine will, not to the will of the people around me. So even let's say I am being kind to my old neighbor. I'm being kind as an act of surrender, not because my old neighbor wants me to do it. And if she's like nasty or something, there is a boundary. I'm being kind. I may ask, like, do you need help? Do you need help with your shopping or something? But not to the extent that she calls me and I become the slave. You go and take me because it's the will of God. Actually, it's because we cannot surrender unless we are doing it consciously with intention, Bismillah. Then it's actually, if we don't have boundaries and if we lived our life like doormats so far, when we decide to trust God and surrender to His will, it becomes easier to have boundaries, and people will quickly learn that you are not a doormat. The more we are aware of the dignity that we have as created as human beings, the more it will reflect around us, and people will dignify us because we will dignify them, and we are mirror to each other. So again, it is to the divine will, not to the will of the people around us. So even if it happens that the will of the people around us is parallel to the will of God, But we are consciously doing it as the will of God, not as theirs, and they quickly will learn the difference. Inshallah.
But for us, maybe it takes a long time to learn the difference.
No, well, the key here is to choose to surrender to the will of God. For instance, I'll give an example where there is no other person involved because it's easy. Because if we solve this, then the will of another person is a second variable if we think of an equation, a mathematical equation. So if we know how to solve one equation with one unknown, it's easy to solve with two unknowns. If I have an illness, surrendering to the will of God, it means I'm not fighting the illness. I'm not complaining about it. Why did it happen to me? It shouldn't have happened to me. Why me? Why not the others? And things like that. I say it happened by the will of God, and I accept the will of God. So when I accept the will of God, first I welcome the illness as a messenger from God. What are you teaching me? At least it's teaching me that this dunya, this world is fani, is passing and temporary, and maybe I need to check my priorities and my choices in life. Maybe my destination, I had forgot that destination is akhirah. I was busy with other things. So I make hamd and shukran, praise God, and thank Him for reminding me this way, instead of living all my life in vain, and then suddenly at the moment of death realizing that I was on the wrong track. So at least it could be also telling me other things. At the same time, when I have this relationship with the illness, does it mean that I don't take any medication? I don't do whatever is needed? Not at all. Actually, it gets easier to deal with the illness, because when I'm not fighting it, it came with a purpose. When it fulfills its purpose, it's easier for it to go, for me to let it go. When I don't listen to it, I'm resisting it, it's more likely that it persists, or I get temporarily well, and it comes again and again because it hasn't fulfilled its purpose. So surrendering to the fact that I'm ill, surrendering to that creation, to that created event, being aware that it's created on purpose, does not mean that now I'm going to not do anything about it. No, I'm doing it in surrender. I take my medication in peace, in surrender, not in fighting with it. And we know now, like, when people fight their illness, they're more likely to take the same medication but not get well, or they get side effects from the stress and everything. That's what it means. It doesn't mean that we don't do anything, but we do it in surrender, in peace. Actually, because we surrender, we are more likely to be more intuitive, to get the guidance and the light. And so we are guided towards the right doctor, the right medication, the right environment, and so on. So I'll go back to the chest. We said our chest, what happens to our chest when we are humiliated, when we feel we are, or we feel. Sometimes it's a fact, sometimes it may not be. Humiliated, saddened, or when we feel uncomfortable for any reason, our chest tighten up. And we told in the Quran, and we already know that your chest is constrained, but by what they say. It's in Surah Al-Hajj, Surah 15, Ayah 97. وَلَقَدْ نَعْلَمُ أَنَّكَ يَضِيقُ صَدْرُكَ بِمَا يَقُولُونَ. So the first addressee is the Prophet, of course, but us as well. So the Prophet ﷺ is, Allah is saying to him, we know that your chest is constrained by what they say. It means they are saying mean things to him. So that tightening, when we feel that tightening in our chest, it makes us remember, because it doesn't feel good when our chest is tight, right? It doesn't feel like when it's expanded. When our chest expands, we feel pleased, we feel at ease. When it's tightened, we don't like it, and that not liking it makes us, urges us, pushes us, encourages us to remember that nothing happens in vain without a purpose, and that all is under divine control, divine supervision. So when we are in that state, when we remember this, the reality, then we intend to surrender, inshallah. We make the intention, and this is a choice, an intentional choice, to surrender to his will, subhanahu. Subhanahu means whatever he creates, he doesn't create anything without purpose and meaning, subhanahu wa ta'ala. And as we remember that he is all compassionate, he has power over all things, so it means whatever is happening now that is tightening my heart is happening by the will of my compassionate and powerful Rabb. And that is when we remember this, we can breathe, and our chest is made to expand, alhamdulillah. And with it comes a feeling of peace, even when nothing has changed in the outside world. Everything is the same. I still have the illness and everything. But inwardly, my chest expands when I reconnect and I remember my Rabb. My perception, what happened? Our perception has changed. We have chosen to trust our Rabb and surrender to his will, which means we have remembered that we are abd and we accepted our ubudiyah. And the next ayah is, the second and third ayah is, وَوَضَعْنَا عَنْكَ وِزْرَكَ الَّذِي أَنْقَضَ ظَهْرَكَ. And we lifted up from you the burden that has weighed so heavily on your back. Wizr here is not like haml. Haml is a burden that we can carry, like a woman when a woman a burden that we can carry, like a woman when a woman is pregnant, she is hamila, she is carrying a burden. But that's wizr is a big burden, a burden that we are unable to carry, something so heavy it could crush us. And that's why anqadha dhahrak, anqadha, naqadha, to break, and anqadha, to place such a pressure, such a burden as something that's about to crack, to break. So what is this burden that is this great burden that is relieved with inshirah as-sadr, with the expansion of the chest? What is it? What happens when the heart expands? There are some various opinions. One of them is it refers to God forgiving all our faults, the past and the future. And this is in Sura 48, Ayah 2. ليغفر لك الله ما تقدم من ذنبك وما تأخر ويتم نعمته عليك ويهديك صراطا مستقيما. So that God might show his forgiveness of all your faults, past as well as future, and bestow upon you the full measure of his blessings and guide you on a straight path. So some understood it as meaning this. Some understood it as the way, the great burden is the burden of searching for truth and purpose, meaning the messenger and the Prophet ﷺ, and therefore every human being is uneasy because when he doesn't know the purpose of life. And so in the case of the Prophet ﷺ, he was seeking answers and reflecting on the meaning of life. We know the story of the cave of Hira, Ghar Hira. And one of the meaning is in Surah Al-Duha, which is the surah just before this surah, when Allah says, وَوَجَدَكَ ضَالًّا فَهَدَى. Did he not find you wandering and he directed you? So when wandering in life, and then when we surrender, he guides us. So when we are not guided, it means there is a huge weight that we cannot carry, that will break our back otherwise, if it's not being taken care of. And here it's understood that human being, or in the case of the Prophet ﷺ, was desperate for the truth, and he sought it. So Allah sent him help by sending him guidance and the revelation of the Quran through Jibreel alayhi salam. Another one is, yes?
I find this discussion very, very helpful, because typically I used to read the surah as speaking about the Prophet's burden, the burden of preaching, reaching out. That's definitely here.
That's usually in the text.
Yeah. In addition, though, like there's
true.
Because absolutely, that's there. That's a very heavy burden. At the same time, by talking about this, it's in like broader terms. That is you're doing that burden. What is that burden? It's not just preaching the message, but it's something more. I mean, it can apply to other things. So that's really, really interesting. One thing that comes to my mind is the discussion in Imam Nursi's discussion about how without the light of the Quran, without the guidance of the Quran, the world looks so gloomy, and it becomes kind of extremely overwhelming to live, because there is no meaning, and there's constant separation, injustices, apparent ugliness, and this whole flow. Where is it going? And it's a big
hard
burden. Yeah, very big burden, and it's really breaking your back.
Mm-hmm. I mean, he gives the example of, for instance, a hair. When it's on the cheek, it's okay, but when it comes on our eye, the eye cannot bear it, and we immediately start producing liquid and tries to get rid of it. Any object, even very tiny, like or something. So, but for the human heart, all these things that you said, for the human heart, for the human soul, they are huge. So another understanding is that the rejection and the humiliation, the rejection of the disbelievers, and therefore of the society where the Prophet ﷺ find himself in, how they humiliated him, and that weigh on the messenger's heart. And this is to a certain extent true for all of us at different degrees. I mean, maybe not humiliation, but you are not totally accepted in a society where people have different values, different perspective of the world and of the akhirah. And the ayah is, sorry. So in general, for every one of us, these burdens, the burdens of seeking the truth, the burdens of being rejected or not fitting into a particular society or family, or it applies to all of us at different degrees. And all are related to the heaviest burden that Isra just mentioned, that Imam Nursi emphasizes again and again. And that burden is the heaviest burden for the human heart and the human soul, which is the separation or the isolation from one's Rabb. Because when we are not, but when we perceive ourselves as separated, as being on our own, without Rabb, without anyone to rely on, then it feels like being an orphan, an alien, not only to ourselves, but to everything else, to all beings, to life, to everything. Because we are alien to ourselves, because we don't know who we are, what we're doing here on earth, and what we do, we block all those questions because we have no answers. And either we choose the path of seeking the truth, like the Prophet ﷺ and the prophets like Ibrahim ﷺ, they sought answers and they received the answers, or we just block them and try to numb ourselves and keep ourselves busy with everything else, just to ignore the situation like an ostrich. Because true connection with anyone, true connection with ourselves only happens when we become aware of our Rabb, when we become aware of who we are, and therefore who is taking care of us, who brought us in this world, who is giving us life here and now, and what we're doing here on earth. Unless we have the answer to these questions, then life becomes really an unbearable burden. And each unwanted situation will remind us of the futility and the meaninglessness, the purposelessness of bearing this burden. And the passing of good situations, joyous situations, also sadden us, because they add to because something beautiful is passing away, and we realize that we cannot hold the joy and the happiness. They always flowing from our hand. They're always running away from us. And this also adds to the weight of such meaningless existence that seems to constantly flow into non-existence. The one who does not know his Rabb, for him, existence means non-existence. That's the gist of existentialism. Actually, it's all about non-existence, although it's called existentialism. So here it's about shirk, and therefore resistance to the will of God, because resisting the will of God means I'm going to do it myself. I'm going to do it myself. It means I am choosing the path of shirk. I'm not surrendering to my Rabb. And that's dhulm. It's I'm doing the greatest wrongdoing according to the Quran, and we do it primarily to ourselves, and it is a great burden as well. So when we are unaware of our Rabb's help and support, when we imagine that we're struggling in life on our own, when we don't intend, which means when we are in this situation, when we are not intending and choosing to surrender to our Rabb and follow his will, I think I have to follow my will, whatever that will is. It's an imagination, because my will would be to never grow older, but I am growing older and weaker. I mean, weaker. We're weak anyways, but like we think we are getting weaker. And so when we don't have the intention to surrender to our Rabb's will, our heart remains tight, and it is not made to truly expand. It seems like it's going to expand, we're joyous, and again and again, until it feels like it's broken and bitter, and we're going to protect myself from all this pattern of again and again I am being, it seems like life is cheating me, and I'm going to really put steel, like an armor, to protect myself from this cheating. but actually I'm doing it to myself because I'm not living in accordance to the reality of what is the reality of life. And so the heart starts getting tighter and tighter and harder, and it will expand less and less. And so we live life in darkness, deprived of the light of divine guidance, which is the only true guidance. The other light, as it says in the Quran, is just like lightning. It looks like you have a little light, and suddenly it disappears again. It's darkness again, because the only true lasting light is the light of divine guidance. And so life itself becomes a heavy burden that we try to evade and avoid by keeping ourselves busy. Isn't that the biggest contradiction? We want to do everything for life, but actually we run away from the same life because it's so painful. So we find ourselves like in this big paradox, and in order to forget about it, we keep ourselves busy, numbing ourselves, working nonstop. We don't want to be in touch with our feelings because they don't bring anything that expands our chest and brings us pleasure and joy, but brings us darkness and sadness, and tightens our heart even more. So this burden is truly very, very heavy, as we are told in this ayah, that it breaks our back, and we are not meant to carry such a weight. And truly, truly, the human heart, the human soul cannot carry the weight of the impermanence of life forever, with no hope of a future. If we kept this awareness, if we live with the awareness, there is no way we can have a family, there's no way we can have friends, there is no way we can even stand ourselves, because the future, anytime, it can be the end of everything, with no future, no hope. It's just too much. And this situation is so crushing to the human soul. There's no hope, no future, no true love and compassion, no true beauty, no true meaning, when everything seems doomed to eternal perdition. But alhamdulillah, we are saved, we are told here, from all this when we choose to surrender to our Rabb, and He expands our heart, and we are enlightened with the light of divine guidance, alhamdulillah. And the next ayah is وَرَفَعْنَا لَكَ ذِكْرَكَ. And have we not raised, it's all question, have we not raised you high in dignity? This ayah, number 4, is translated in different ways. Sometimes as we raised for you your remembrance. It's because dhikr, the primary meaning of dhikr, is reminder or remembrance, like dhikrullah, remembrance of God. A secondary meaning is that by which something is remembered. And usually in the positive, remembered with praise, remembered positively. Therefore, it also means renown or fame. And in this particular context, it can also be understood as dignity. And when here, it's clear to see that it is the dignity of Abdullah, the dignity of the believer who worships God alone, the believer who surrenders to God alone, who trusts God alone. He doesn't have to stoop to anything else. He doesn't expect help from anything else. It doesn't mean that my friends won't help me, but my friend's help is also perceived by the believer, the surrenderer, as my friend's heart has been filled with compassion and made to help me. Because if that connection is not there, if I'm relying on my friend alone, then I become like afraid. What if my friend one day decides not to help me? What if my friend one day decides to move away? I live with the anxiety of losing that support. So it comes at a great price. There is no dignity in shirk. And there is full dignity. There is dignity to the extent that we live with the consciousness of Tawheed, with worshiping God alone and seeking help from Him alone. So we get the help from His creation in His name. So we are more grateful to the friend. We honor and dignify the friend in the name of God. He is like an ambassador of the divine compassion and help. But at the same time, we do not worship him. We're not afraid of him, of the friend. We are not as his will. We don't become the doormat. Our dignity is always preserved with that awareness of the believer in God alone. And this reminds us in the Quran, we are told that everything has been created to serve human being. So, for instance, the story of the creation of Adam, which is the story of the creation of every human being, in Surah Al-A'raf, which is Surah 7, in Ayah 10 and 11, we are told, وَلَقَدْ مَكَّنَّاكُمْ فِي الْأَرْضِ وَجَعَلْنَا لَكُمْ فِيهَا مَعَايِشَ قَلِيلًا مَا تَشْكُرُونَ وَقَدْ خَلَقْنَاكُمْ ثُمَّ صَوَّرْنَاكُمْ ثُمَّ قُلْنَا لِلْمَلَائِكَةِ اسْجُدُوا لِآدَمَ فَسَجَدُوا إِلَّا إِبْلِيسَ لَمْ يَكُنْ مِنَ السَّاجِدِينَ. So, indeed, all people, we have given you a place on earth and appointed thereon means of livelihood for you. Yet, how rarely you are grateful. It means you are not grateful most of the time because you are not aware of how we are taking care of you. Yes, indeed, we have created you, means you people, all people from before, and then formed you. And then we said unto the angels, prostrate yourselves before Adam, whereupon they all prostrated themselves, except Iblis, he was not among those who prostrate themselves. So the earth, everything has been made for us an appointed means of livelihood, and we told to the angels to prostrate, and yet how seldom you are grateful. Subhanallah. So human being is created with dignity. And in Surah At-Teen, which inshallah will be next week's surah, Surah 95, it's the surah right after this Surah al-Inshirah, we are told لَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ فِي أَحْسَنِ تَقْوِيمٍ. We have created human being in the best conformation. ثُمَّ رَدَدْنَاهُ أَسْفَلَ السَّافِلِينَ إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ فَلَهُمْ أَجْرٌ غَيْرُ مَمْنُونٍ. And thereafter we reduced him to the lowest of the low, except those who have believed and do good works, and there shall be a reward unending. They will have a reward unending in this world and in the next, inshallah. So human being has been created in the best of forms, in the best of conformation, but we can spoil it and the way to not spoil it is to believe in God and live with that belief. Live beautifully. Practice that belief. So you see that truly there is dignity in the belief of God. And if we don't live with dignity, we will be reduced to the lowest of the low. We will lose our dignity as a human being. We will be living without even knowing the meaning of life, the purpose of life. And we'll end up at the end with nothing, because whatever we achieved, even if we think we've been very successful, at the end, when we are leaving this world, we realize that it's the end. And according to the one who believes knows that it's the beginning of eternity. But the one who doesn't, for him it's the end. Subhanallah. Then we are told فَإِنَّ مَعَ الْعُسْرِ يُسْرًا إِنَّ مَعَ الْعُسْرِ يُسْرًا. And behold, with every hardship comes plenty of ease. Truly, with every hardship comes plenty of ease. Usr is difficulty or a time of difficulty. And yusra is easy, smooth, something without effort. And it means surely with the hardship, there is ease and relief right next to it, within it, because no, here there is ma'al usri, al-usri yusra. So al-usr, the difficulty means one difficulty, one hardship. But we are told yusra with nakira, with tanween at the end, means it is left open, not one, many eases, and an abundance of ease. One hardship, after it, an abundance of ease. And ma'a combines the two things together, and it doesn't mean just with, it can also mean within. It's a sign of simultaneously. They happen at once. It's not like I'll have hardship for a year and then ease. No. It's like they coexist. The hardship and the ease, they coexist. They're like the two sides of the same coins. When hardship is perceived for what it is truly, coming from God, created for a purpose, with meaning, with compassion, then we become open to perceive and experience the ease within it. The meaning, we start reading it. The hardship is the writing, the ease is the meaning of the writing. The writing could be ugly, but the meaning could be very beautiful. A child wrote something very not nice, but what he wrote, the meaning is very deep and very beautiful. Think of it that way. So the beautiful message within the hardship is something that pertains to the divine names, the beautiful names, and to akhirah. It pertains to husna, to beauty. And ma'a gives that meaning of within, coexistence, like simultaneously. It's not, I don't have to wait for one to finish to see the other one. If I'm waiting until it finished, I'm missing it. The repetition of the two ayat, إِنَّ مَعَ الْعُسْرِ فَإِنَّ مَعَ الْعُسْرِ يُسْرًا إِنَّ مَعَ الْعُسْرِ يُسْرًا, is an emphasis, and also it could be an indication, this is my understanding, to the double ease indicated in the previous ayat. One, with inshirah as-sadr, with the expansion of the chest, comes the ease of being saved from the burden, ayat 2 and 3, and the ease of being dignified, ayat 4. Classically, it's been interpreted as a reference to ease in the past and the future, and ease in the dunya and akhirah. But if we understand it as an indication to being saved from the burden and being dignified, then automatically it will be related to the past and the future and to the ease of this dunya and akhirah, because the person who perceives the ease, the plenty of ease, the plenty of beauty within the hardship, he is aware that this dunya is mazra'atul akhirah, is the seed bed of akhirah. They are not is the seed bed of akhirah. They are not separate, not dunya and then one day akhirah will come. They coexist. The dunya and akhirah also coexist here and now. Yesterday is not here, it's akhirah. It's waiting for us. So time is not linear. And the next ayah is فَإِذَا فَرَغْتَ فَانْصَبْ. Therefore, when you are freed, remain steadfast. Usually it has been understood when you are freed from your duties, but from this context we can also understand it when you are freed from your distress, from whatever is making your chest tight, from the hardship, then remain steadfast. Nasaba has also a meaning of exhausting oneself. Fansab, stand yourself up, remain devoted, obviously devoted to worship of God, to surrendering to God. So what comes to mind is a hadith when the Prophet ﷺ is reported to have been praying at night, and he was praying so long for tahajjud, night prayer, that his feet were swollen, and Aisha radiallahu anha asked him, do you pray while God has forgiven you your past and future mistakes, which is a verse in the Quran, I think in Surah Al-Fath. So he said, O Aisha, should I not be grateful and thankful to God? Which always attracts my attention because it makes me stop, because what comes first to mind is, I would think like Aisha, like you have been given the warranty that all your mistakes, the past and the future, everything has been forgiven. So why are you praying so much? You have a guarantee. And I can relate to Aisha radiallahu anha. But when you think about it, what the Prophet ﷺ is practicing makes more sense. Because he says, well, this is even more reason to be grateful. Isn't that beautiful? The way, so I thought about it like, the first time I read it, I thought what Aisha radiallahu anha is asking makes more sense, because yeah, of course, like take it easy. It's all forgiven. But then it means we have not truly understood what it means to be abd. We have not totally, completely tasted and experienced ubudiyah yet. If we still think, okay, it's all forgiven now, I don't have to be so grateful. I don't have to worship that much. But he saw it another way. He says, this is even more reason to be grateful, even more. Subhanallah. May Allah, may we experience our ubudiyah and taste the sweetness of ubudiyah, so we understand that we are being flooded with an abundance of blessings. So being grateful, worshiping God is being grateful, is saying thank you for all the blessings that you gave me. So he gave you so many blessings, why are you like still saying thank you? That's reason to even say more thank you. Subhanallah. And the more thank you we say, the more we remember, thank you for this and thank you for that. So many things. And of course, the most beautiful thing here is that dignity, and with it, the weight of the shirk, of the meaninglessness of life, of the purposes of life, is taken away, and you will feel so light in both weight wise and light in light. Everything is enlightened, everything has meaning, everything is actually a sign, is a showing the way. You can't go wrong. Everything is beautiful, even hardship. Within what looks like hardship itself is beautiful, and within it is ease, abundance of ease. Subhanallah. وَإِلَى رَبِّكَ فَارْغَب. The last ayah. And unto your Rabb, your sustainer, turn with love and longing. Can be understood that only to your Rabb direct your love. So direct your love and longing to your Rabb only, which means be devoted lovingly with love and longing to your Rabb only and nothing else. And how do we understand that it's to your Rabb only? Because in Arabic, normally it says فَارْغَب إِلَى رَبِّكَ, but here there is تقديم وَإِلَى رَبِّكَ فَارْغَب, so it means only to God, nothing else, no shirk.
Yeah, but this is another verse that I really have, I'm trying to understand. I mean, to love and long for God only.
Whatever we long for beauty, the beauty of relationship, the beauty of the flowers, the beauty of the sea, the beauty of music, the beauty of words, the beauty of meanings, the beauty of poems, the beauty of the Quran, the beauty of the truth, all of them, the beauty of colors, the beauty of the sunset and the sunlight, all of them are only reflections of the beauty. And that beauty belongs to him alone. And if I'm seeking beauty in all those things without awareness that the source is with him, that will be the shirk. I won't be living with the dignity. There will be the weight of I may have my house filled with all the beautiful things that I love, have a nice view, but I know that either they will leave me or I will leave them. So even if I get them all, which is not possible, but let's say it's possible, because it's temporary and impermanent, it gives us the more beauty I have around me. If I'm a lover of beauty, the more it will break my heart, the more it will make me sad and bitter about life, because beauty will be like Imam Nursi says, beauty will transform into ugliness, because it will remind me that everything I will leave everything here.
So it's another call. It's another call to detachment from the things, like detachment from the flower.
We love them in his name, and we talked about it many times. Loving things and people. Imam Nursi, he's asked the question about, for instance, the family. Aren't we going to love our parents, our brothers, our sisters, our spouses? And he explains that, like, when we love them in the name of God with this awareness, actually we don't love them less. They are not less valuable. They become more valuable, because we see their connection with our Rabb. And so we see the compassion, the love, the beauty that's coming through things and through people as being not belonging to the people and therefore having no value in itself. No, they are coming from God, pointing back to him, having messages from him, and therefore we receive them with much more gratitude to the person and to God.
So it's not detachment, or is it detachment and opening up at the same time?
Yeah, it's not just a detachment like in Buddhism, detach and full stop. Because here there is a detachment and coming back. There is it's a two-step. You realize that they're all from God, and you come back and you start looking at the flower and saying, Subhanallah, it's made so beautifully, Ya Jameel. So you have a new connection with it in the name of God. And you realize that we are siblings, we are brothers and sisters. Not only all humanity is connected, but all of creation. And we treasure them more in his name. So there are two steps.
So it's detachment and purposeful attachment.
Exactly. The first one, but without the detachment first, I cannot come back and have that purpose full attachment in the name of God, which is the most beautiful, which is living with ihsan, and inshallah.
So if I just, so from today, it's always the same, right? It's always, you can just only fully hand yourself over. It's just that the things that you're dealing with are different. So there was a time when it was about job and work, and now it's about personal relations. I hope at least I'm getting closer to somewhere.
Inshallah. Inshallah. So here it says, whenever فَإِذَا فَرَغْتَ فَانْصَبْ وَإِلَى رَبِّكَ فَارْغَبْ. When you are relieved of one task, like the job is never done. Whenever you're free from one thing, move to the other. And while you are moving, there is one thing that is important, that in everything, seek turn to God alone. Seek the face of God is something similar. Seeking the face of God in everything. Whatever you are doing, do it with devotion and love and longing for your Rabb only. And so here, since we have received the good news of the abundant ease coming after every hardship, we are also told not to dwell on the hardships forever. Don't let it distress you. Instead, devote yourself to your Rabb with love and praise and gratitude. Devote yourself to see the ease within it and move. Don't, because sometimes the hardship is over 20 years ago, but in our inner life, it's still there. We still carry all the emotions fresh and we can't move because our love and longing and everything is to the world itself, to the things, events themselves. But when we have this destination, this clarity, this sharh is this clarity. When we have the clarity in our heart that our destination is God here and now and everything is our Rabb, and looking for Him, for His name, to know Him, to trust Him, to love Him, know Him more, love Him more, then everything to move become easy, and not to dwell on the things themselves and what they did to me, why did they did it. We can't open their hearts. We don't know. It's not our business. It's not our responsibility. And then we don't dwell on our responsibility, and instead of taking responsibility for our choices and making istighfar and making the right choice, which is to surrender, we are busy blaming everyone, sometimes ourselves as well, and not moving in the sense of moving up. So I want to end with a beautiful dua from the Quran. It's in Surah At-Tawbah, so Surah 9, Ayah 59. حسبنا الله سيؤتينا الله من فضله ورسوله إنا إلى الله راغبون. I love this dua, which is God is enough for us. حسبنا الله. God will give us whatever He wills out of His grace, and will cause His messenger to give us too, by following the path of His beloved messengers. Truly, unto God alone do we turn with hope and love and devotion. ربنا ظلمنا أنفسنا وإن لم تغفر لنا وترحمنا لنكونن من الخاسرين. ربنا عليك توكلنا وإليك أنبنا وإليك المصير. ربنا آتنا من لدنك رحمة وهيئ لنا من أمرنا رشدا. ربنا افتح بيننا وبين قومنا بالحق وأنت خير الفاتحين. فاطر السماوات والأرض أنت ولينا في الدنيا والآخرة. توفنا مسلمين والحقنا بالصالحين. آمين. والحمد لله رب العالمين.
Thank you. Jazakallah khair, Sister Yamina. Sister Yamina ended with a prayer that was collected from different passages in the Quran. Beautiful dua, asking for forgiveness and declaring that we trust and surrender, and also praying that may we all make our transition from this world as those who surrendered unto Him, and resurrect as righteous, inshallah. It's 10:15 p.m. right now. Let's see, Sister Anne. She seems to have some good questions. I'm not sure if we can give them full answer at this time, but I can read, or if Sister Anne, if you would like to speak, if you have a microphone, you're welcome to also express it yourself. Or I can go ahead and read. I'm not sure if you're talking. We're not hearing you. You're muted. But I can read your note. She's saying some sisters in the community are suffering from depression. Their suffering is real, and I feel telling them to just trust in Allah seems insensitive. I don't know, Sister Yamina, if you want to just offer some clues or a general answer, or if you want to just leave it here and maybe it will unpack as we continue in our Quran study.
Inshallah, maybe it's something that can be discussed. These things, we discuss them more in our retreats, because you are right that if someone is suffering from depression, the answer is not to tell them just make tawakkul ala Allah, trust in God and surrender, because it could be, and it is often, that what started the whole thing, but we are too far away now, so we need to get back to a place where that person can understand what it means to trust and surrender, if you see what I mean. So just to, it's like people, instead of the word here used, Inshirah, lam nashrah, it doesn't say we opened. The word fataha is to open in Arabic, when you open the door, because Inshirah is nashrah, because it's something that's more complex than just opening, because in order to trust God and surrender, it's not only, the key thing is our choice, but before that we have to know something, and before that, in order to know, we have to have that clarity, and that's why sharaha has also, to clarify a text, to write notes to clarify a text, is sharh. It's the same word, because sometimes when we don't have that clarity, what does it mean? Who is God? What do you mean by surrender? What do I trust? Because as you said, if I have an illness, especially something serious, for instance, that's a fact and that's a reality. So if someone says, but it's painful, I can't say it's not. So what we're learning is it's a new way of looking at things. And it doesn't start with surrender. Like you hear a lot in the Muslim community saying it's all from the Quran and the Sunnah. Well, yes, but what is the Quran? What is the Sunnah? Just like having a formula doesn't explain things. So it's the healing is it's called tarbiyah. It's something that we slowly get used to it. It's something that we need to learn slowly, to change our perception of things, to see things in a different way. However, when we say see things in a different way, it does not mean that the person doesn't have an illness. It doesn't mean that my illness is not painful. It just, how I relate to it, I learn to relate to it in a different way. And that's going to take time, and people need help and compassion. And the first thing to help and empathize with other people is not to tell them, what are you doing? Just surrender. Because our responsibility is not to make people surrender, it's to surrender ourselves. So myself, personally, to surrender in that situation is to acknowledge the other person's pain and to say, yes, it is painful. And would you be willing to learn how to deal with this pain without reducing the pain, or without talking as if it were not there, or as if it was not important, because it is that pain that is going to take us back to God if we know how to. It's just that the person never doesn't have the tools and never was told how to do it. So if I come directly, bluntly say, make tawakkul, what does it mean? It can be understood, especially if I'm hurting. I can understand it as, do you mean that I should play Pollyanna? I should play like it's not hurting? And if we understand surrender that way, it is wrong. Surrender doesn't mean that, as I explained before. So maybe, again, inshallah, the intention is to have our annual retreat, inshallah, in December, because there was the participant all kept asking what is surrender. Inshallah, our intention, if it happens, bi'idhnillah, the retreat will be on surrender, inshallah. It's definitely not what we think it is. Just ignore what's happening, be like an ostrich, put your head in the sand and ignore everything. But it does mean to learn to view things in a new way, because they are not what we think they are. We have not learned to look at things as ayat, as ayat means signs from God. And so what is more painful is more painful than the illness, for instance, and the depression, and is its meaninglessness to me. The fact that I don't know why it's there, why is it me, why I'm stuck here, that's even more painful than the situation itself. But it's a journey, and all life is a journey.
Okay, Jazakallah khair, Sister Yamina, and thank you all for joining us tonight, and for your comments and questions and contributions. We'll stop here and we'll continue our Quran study weekly. As Sister Yamina mentioned, we'll have our next study next week in the usual time, but then in Ramadan we'll switch to Saturdays at noon Eastern Standard Time, and we'll be looking at Surah al-Hadid during Ramadan, and next week we'll be looking at Surah al-Teen, Surah 95. So with that, we'll end here. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. Thank you. Jazakallah khair.